There's a specific feeling that hits you when you hear a certain engine note or stumble across an old photo of a car meet from 2003. And it's not just nostalgia. It's something deeper, something that almost hurts.
And the people who feel it can't fully explain why a modified Honda Civic or a beat-up Subaru from 20 years ago makes them feel more alive than almost anything happening in the world today. So what's actually going on inside the minds of people who can't let go of early 2000s car culture?
Because this isn't just about cars. It never was. Let's go back for a second. Picture a Friday night in 2002. A parking lot somewhere. Maybe outside a fast food place, maybe an empty industrial area on the edge of town.
Cars are pulling in, one by one. Music is coming from every direction. Someone has their hood up. Someone else is revving their engine just to hear it echo off the concrete walls. Nobody has a smartphone. Nobody is filming it for content.
People are just there, fully present, completely absorbed in this thing they love. And for a lot of people, that feeling, that exact moment, became the standard by which they measure every experience that came after it. That's the first thing you need to understand.
The early 2000s car scene didn't just give people a hobby. It gave them a world, a complete immersive subculture with its own rules, its own language, its own hierarchy, and its own sense of belonging. And human beings are wired to hold on to worlds like that, especially when those worlds are tied to who they were becoming. There's something that happens in your brain between the ages of roughly 15 and 25. Every experience during that window gets processed differently. The music you loved, the places you hung out, the people you were with, they all get encoded with a kind of emotional intensity that experiences from other periods of your life simply don't get. Psychologists have studied this for decades. It's not magic, it's biology. Your brain is essentially building the foundation of your identity during those years, and everything that's part of that process gets burned in deep. For millions of people, mostly millennials, some older Gen Z, early 2000s car culture was right in that window. It wasn't just something they did, it was part of who they were becoming. The car you drove, the mods you saved up for, the meets you showed up to. These things were statements of identity. They told the world, and more importantly, told yourself who you were. And here's what makes this specific era so powerful compared to what came before or after it. The early 2000s car scene existed in this perfect pocket of time where passion and accessibility collided. You didn't need a fortune to be part of it. A few $1,000s, maybe less, could get you into a car that felt genuinely special to you. You could learn how to work on it yourself. You could find a community at a local meet, on a forum, at a track day. The barrier to entry was low, but the emotional payoff was massive. Compare that to today. Modern car culture exists, sure, but it often feels filtered through screens, curated for followers, optimized for algorithms. The raw, unpolished, completely authentic energy of gathering in a parking lot at midnight with people who care just as deeply as you do about a 20-year-old import, that's almost gone. And the people who experience the original version feel that absence constantly, even if they can't put it into words. There's also something about the cars themselves that matters psychologically. Early 2000s cars had character. They had flaws. They broke down. They needed attention. And that relationship of putting time and energy and frustration and love into a machine that gave it back to you in performance and feeling created a bond that people don't easily find with modern vehicles. Today's cars are incredibly capable, but they're also sealed off. Computers control everything. The feedback loop between driver and machine has been smoothed over. And when you remove friction, you often remove connection. The people who miss that era aren't just being nostalgic about cars. They're mourning a specific kind of relationship. A relationship where effort meant something. Where what you put in, you got back out. Now, here's where it gets personal for a lot of people. Many of the individuals most deeply attached to early 2000s car culture were using it as an escape. Not in a negative way, in a deeply human way. Life in your late teens and early 20s is often chaotic. Family problems, uncertainty about the future, social pressure, the relentless confusion of figuring out who you are. The car scene offered something that was completely within your control. You chose your build. You decided what mattered. You found your people.
In a world that felt overwhelming, having this one thing that was entirely yours was profoundly grounding. And now, years later, when the chaos of adult life picks up again, mortgage stress, career anxiety, the slow drift away from close friendships, the brain does something very specific.
It reaches back. It finds the memory of that time when you felt capable, free, and connected, when Friday night meant something real. And it presents that memory not just as a thought, but as a feeling, a full-body emotional experience.
That's why hearing a specific exhaust note can stop you in your tracks. Your nervous system isn't just remembering a car, it's remembering a version of yourself. This is also why the community aspect of early 2000s car culture hits so differently in hindsight.
There's a loneliness epidemic running through modern life that almost everyone can feel, but few people openly talk about. Genuine community, the kind where you show up in person, share a common passion, and build real relationships over time, has become genuinely rare.
Early 2000s car culture had that in abundance, and it had it organically. Nobody organized it through an app, nobody monetized the community. People just showed up because they wanted to be there, and they kept showing up because what they found was real. When people say they miss that era, a significant part of what they're missing is that feeling of being truly known by a group of people, of having a place where you automatically belonged, not because of your job or your status, but because of what you cared about. That kind of belonging is something the human brain treats almost like oxygen. When it's gone, you notice. There's one more layer to this that almost never gets talked about. A lot of the people who came up in early 2000s car culture were young men who didn't have many other outlets for expression, creativity, or identity. The car gave them all of that. It was the one place where they could pour themselves into something and see the results, where aesthetic choices, technical skill, and personal taste all merged into one object that represented them. That's an incredibly powerful psychological experience. And for many of them, they've never quite found anything else that satisfied all of those things at once in the same way. So when you see someone who still has their old car, or who still watches build videos from 2004, or who still gets emotional talking about a scene that most people have completely forgotten, you're not looking at someone trapped in the past. You're looking at someone who found something real. Something that met a whole set of deep human needs at exactly the right moment in their life, and who hasn't been able to find anything quite like it since. The early 2000s car scene is over. The parking lots are empty. The forums are gone. A lot of the cars have been crushed. But the people it shaped are still here. And some part of them is still in that parking lot, hood up, engine running, waiting for something that felt that real to find them again.